So my job here today is to again talk about trade issues, but linking it more to what it means for India in terms of its agricultural land and forest kind of issues and policies, right? So you already heard from Abhijit about this, this huge capture, and we've always seen this capture by the global north of trade policies and how they've been using trade policy. But then we also heard from Anita about digitalisation and anything you have it, they know how to use it very well for commercial purposes, right? And the problem is that many of our governments are actually, because we want them so much as our friends and allies, that we are very kind of desperate to please them. And India, in fact, in the WTO, even until now, I would say, it has had a good position. It has been fighting. But I think my job here is to kind of take you quickly through what the WTO, what are some of the issues being negotiated in the WTO, and also in the bilateral or regional free trade agreements, So the WTO is a multilateral space, 164 member countries, but India is also negotiating a lot of trade agreements with either a group of countries or with individual countries. And all these have implication because we are taking on commitments relating to agriculture, forest, land, and everything. So my job is to quickly take you through some of those and just kind of to flag, because it's like a warning, and we really need to kind of watch that these are going to come in, seep into our national policy making. It's already doing that. And then where do we fight this battle? So the agreement on agriculture in the WTO, one of the most unfair, most inequitable agreements even within the WTO. The WTO has scrapes and whole lot of rubbish agreements, but I would say agriculture goes to the top, actually, because it had such diverse rules. One set for developed countries, they managed to get a lot of concessions for themselves. So they have, like extra entitlements. They just got it because they were politically powerful. US can give $19 billion of subsidies. None of us can give. I mean, even if we had the money. And then they use, all kinds of like these different conceptual things in the WTO. So the green box is a kind of subsidies which is seen to be, it doesn't distort trade. It's about research and helping farmers and extension. And the rich countries have used green box in a way that have actually killed farmers across developing countries, and the WTO allows that. And the interesting thing is that the developing countries were lured, I would say, into the WTO, saying that you have advantage in agriculture. You should do agricultural exports, and WTO will help you do it. We will, we will make the rules fair. Rich countries will not give subsidies because that is hurting your farmers' interest. We will discipline subsidies in the WTO. So this is one of the tools because of which developing countries then started joining actually the WTO. But now 25 years down the line, we see how much of a lie that was. So as I said, on the one hand, developed countries have they have these major loopholes provided by the agreement on agriculture. They can give subsidies. We can give subsidies only 10% of the value of production. And this has led to control of agribusiness, speculation in global markets, lot of volatility, etc. in global agricultural markets. So this is the key issue for us, and many of you know this. This is called the public stockholding for food security purposes. It is about our minimum support price. The subsidy that goes to farmers through the MSP, like through public food programs. When the government buys from farmers, it gives them a subsidy. This subsidy WTO sees as trade distorting, so it should be less than 10% of the value of agricultural production. But you can imagine that for our farmers, MSP, I mean the farmers, like the whole fight of farmers, most of it was against MSP. MSP is critical not only for India, but many other countries, Kenya, Indonesia, Egypt, they run programs like this. They procure for farmers, they give them subsidies. So it's very similar, but India actually has a major stake in this. So one thing is this MSP issue, and this issue we've been fighting since 2012. We've got some kind of an interim solution, but with a lot of conditionalities. So India is actually in massive trouble over its MSP. It's apparently violating WTO rules, and all the rich countries are already asking India for explanations. And whatever, we got something like, as I said, an interim solution in 2013, but India is actually not able to meet those conditions. So we are going to be taken to the dispute settlement body, and India will have to stop giving MSP. And you are already seeing that the government, there is an effort, apart from pushing the interest of private agribusiness, Indian agribusiness, this is also the thing. India knows it cannot give MSP for very long under WTO rules, and it's actually trying to push back. Though in the WTO, India remains committed to this issue, but I'm actually very worried that recently 80 countries, India is part of the G33 group of developing countries, plus ACP African group, they all submitted proposal in the WTO to protect this kind of MSP kind of policies, because what they are demanding is we should be able to give it without limit. We are giving it to small farmers for protecting public food programs, for public food security, because unless farmers continue to produce, we can never meet the needs of food security of our people. But the rich countries, because US, EU, Canada, and even Brazil, Argentina, agriculture exporting developing countries, they hate these subsidies because they basically want to come and sell to us. They do not want Indian farmers to produce. So this is the biggest issue. And what I'm worried about is Indian government, which is fighting until now, will slowly give up that position. So unless we engage, we are not going to protect the MSP. The other thing is domestic support, which is the huge subsidies that the rich countries give. So for long, we have been asking that those need to be disciplined. But what they have done very cleverly, how they can capture every debate, every discussion is like amazing. And they have now turned it in a way that they are attacking what we can give. Even this 10% of value of production that we are allowed to give, we cannot give. Then developing countries can also give unlimited subsidies on input, infrastructure, and so on, which is our right under special and differential treatment. As a developing country, we can give this. They are attacking this. They are saying these should be cut. If you need to cut domestic subsidies overall, rich countries will protect theirs, but we are now also supposed to give up these special entitlements. They are also attacking export restrictions. You remember during the food crisis, India put up restrictions on wheat export, but it has faced a lot of challenges, and the developed countries are again pushing that no export restriction, full trade liberalization. It is interesting how they have managed to, hijack every crisis, every issue. Like the pandemic came, food crisis came, they said, oh, you don't need to produce more. You just liberalize trade. We will sell you everything. So that is always the solution. And then the big attack is sustainability. I think Abhijit mentioned it. So national level, we can, firstly, I think full revision of the agreement on agriculture. I think groups really need to engage. We need more policy space for our countries. For example, India should be able to say, I don't give a damn about WTO rules. I'm going to subsidize my farmers because they need it. We do not need to do more trade liberalization. We need policy space to develop our production. We need to give support to small farmers. That's how we would develop our agriculture. And it's a battle of narratives. Like the developed countries will say, they will give you the solution. They know what the problem is. They will say, oh, just keep trade open. Everything will be okay. No need to worry about everything. No need to produce more. We are producing, we will sell you. And that narrative needs to be countered. Quickly on the free trade agreements. So along with the WTO, as I said, we are negotiating also these bilateral agreements. And India, because we want to, we have our big brothers and friends in the rich countries. So initially, India was signing with more countries with similar economic position, right? And India didn't do too badly, though we've been having deficit from most of these trade agreements. But now the developed countries are our friends. And in fact, in last 2-3 years, we've seen a massive shift Now India wants to sign agreements only with rich countries. You will see these statements coming from our commerce minister. Oh, we are signing with EU. With UK, we will have a Diwali level agreement. By Diwali, we will have a FTA with UK. So we are now negotiating with EU, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and Abhijit already talked about the IPEF, which would be the mother of all agreements. Remember, we used to think developed countries don't have an interest in agriculture. Totally wrong. EU, US, etc., they do not sign any agreement unless you open up agriculture sector to them. With the EU, we've been negotiating actually since 2007. Agriculture was their major area of offensive interest. They will not sign if we do not give them commitments in agriculture. So first big issue is, of course, we will have to remove import duties. In WTO, this has not moved so much. There's a kind of a block on cutting import duties. But under the FTAs, they'll go to zero. So now we have like applied average duty of around 33% in agricultural products. Most of it will go to zero, right? Then we have issues like IPRs. I think Abhijit talked about it. So we are being asked to sign seed treaties like the UPA of 1991, which means you cannot freely exchange seeds, you cannot save seeds, you cannot sell seeds. The companies will hold. Their rights will have to be agreed. India has not signed on to UPA, and EU and many other countries, and I think even IPEF will push us to sign UPA. Agrochemical prices will increase, and EU is also pushing us to recognize their geographical indications in cheese, meat products, etc., etc. So for dairy industry, it's a huge issue, the GI. Important issue is investment chapters, that what they want is they give, under these agreements, we have to recognize the investors' rights. So you would have, I don't know if many of you know, in Andhra Pradesh, there was a case by a UAE company where there was an agreement with the Andhra Pradesh government that they are allowed to mine bauxite, and they will take bauxite for their company, like their Indian holding company. Government, because the tribals protested there, the government cancelled the contract, and the company, using these investment treaties and chapters, sued us for $44.71 million US. We were fighting this case, but on a technical ground, I think India has got some reprieve. But on each issue, it's not one case. It's like there can be 10 cases. Like in the case of, Enron, we face like 7, 8 cases. So there will be parallel cases. So we are facing massive challenge to land, water, forests. Because globally, these investment treaty cases, more than 50% of them are in minerals. They are in natural resources. So you were talking just now about challenge to land. When a foreign company is setting up a factory and buying land, you cannot oust them because they are protected under these kind of chapters. And also under these trade agreements, what they also want is we should not put up export taxes. So for example, India can put up export taxes on food. So we protect domestic food security. Or we have agricultural raw materials for our food processing industry. EU, US, they want that removed because they want access to those raw material basically. And the last issue is on sustainability. This is cross-cutting. Big time, it's coming in the WTO, it's coming in the FTAs. And, we always wanted sustainability, right? We want sustainable agriculture. And we have said that these agreements are terrible because these trade agreements are causing, damage to land. They are causing land grab, resource grab. You need to address ISDS and these kind of issues. But what they are doing is they are putting their own blueprint of what is sustainable agriculture. What is sustainable food system? We have to learn from the EU what is sustainable food system. And what is it? They have proposed it in the EU-India FTA for one, and it will come in the IPEF also. What is it? An enterprise has to be always profitable. What does that mean? Our small farmer always has to be profitable. We know they are always at a loss. They cannot get subsidies. It is unprofitable to subsidize them. And you must tax. Only those enterprises which can be taxed can survive. They are part of a sustainable food system. And they'll say, this is to meet the SDGs, this is to meet our climate commitments. But SDG frankly talks about supporting small farmers. But the EU model, basically these are models, they are setting environmental standards in a way that their companies can sell to us, but our farmers cannot produce. We cannot even hold the domestic market, and we cannot sell to them. We are not allowed. We do not meet sustainability standards. So that is going to be huge. I would suggest you all keep attention on these issues, and this is just my last slide, because what we've been discussing even in the morning, the climate thing and agriculture, trade and agriculture. What the developed countries have very cleverly used, they are using multiple forums. They are talking about how bad subsidies are in CBD, and they've got some language. Then in trade, they are coming and saying, oh, how we need to do sustainability. But be very, very clear, we do not have any hope of any positive outcome on sustainability in the trade fora, because it's a very harsh commercial negotiating space. We are very sustainable. Actually, we are more sustainable. So I think for us, they can control these spaces. They will do it in multiple. You fight in WTO, you will get it in CBD. You fight it in the FTAs, you will get it in WTO. So they know they are pushing systematically in parallel platforms. We need to watch that. They control, as I said, COVID, food crisis, they'll say, we know what the solution is. Keep trade open, just do more trade liberalization. So I think we need to engage, and they are using not only sustainability, gender, labor, everything is being used in a way that is basically to give more market control to foreign agri-based corporations. So for us, it's very important to understand this whole big network. You cannot watch one thing. Like digitization, like we've discussed, it's everywhere. Even in agriculture, trade, they have made a list of what are services. All agricultural activities are services. So when you will be negotiating agreement on agriculture, but when they do services liberalization, your entire agriculture sector will go. Or when they open up e-commerce, your entire agriculture sector will go, because they are doing this, they use these multiple concepts very well. And last line, Meena, sorry, is just that I think for us, the political fight is very important. We are fighting with our governments. We know that they are fighting in the WTO, but nationally they are saying something else. They are cutting budgets on MSP. They are cutting budgets on supporting farmers. But in the WTO, they are still saying, we need to give subsidies to farmers. And we don't know which moment they will collapse, because they want to have the US as their friend. They want to have EU as the new friends, So I think it's very important that political battle at both national level and international level is very important. But at the same time, and also things like agriculture out of WTO, very important political campaigns. But at the same time, we would need to engage heavily on the ground in these spaces, because these are moving so fast. If we don't engage, if we don't interfere and at least jam these, we will be nowhere. Within very soon we'll be nowhere. Thanks a lot.